I was an attorney, and I spent 21 years as staff attorney for the Puyallup Indian tribe, who are absolutely wonderful people who treated me wonderfully and the most generous human beings on the face of the earth, as far as I know. And I had a wonderful career with them, doing treaty fishing rights primarily, and a few other things. And when I retired, I said, thank you for giving me the opportunity to practice law for my entire career without having to do anything that, you know, felt morally reprehensible to me, which I think, unfortunately, is a rare thing for a lawyer. So yes, you know, of course, spending 21 years there, I got very familiar with all of, you know, the issues that go on in Indian country, and I know how our entire system basically, well, it started by stealing all the land and having an official legal policy of genocide against the people whose land it was in this country. And our entire society, our entire political system is grounded on, you know, repressing and oppressing those people. So I have always been an activist, I guess, since I was in high school. I have been very concerned with both environmental justice and social justice issues. Actually before I retired, I joined the Seattle Raging Grannies, and they are my sort of primary group here in Seattle. And is it 5 years ago now? 5 years ago we had, we have what's called an unconvention every 2 years, which is all the granny groups in cities across the US and Canada. It started in Canada. So all the granny groups across the US and Canada get together somewhere and share what we've been doing and our satirical songs. If you're not familiar with the Raging Grannies, it's sort of a mostly street theater group, but we also tend to get involved in actions. Anyway, 5 years ago, it was the 25-year anniversary of the founding of the original group in Victoria, BC. So the unconvention was in Victoria, BC. And we don't do a lot of resolutions or anything. We're not very formal. We're not really we don't have any formal national organization. But there were, I think, 23 cities represented there and 110 grannies. And there were 2 resolutions brought. I don't remember what the other one was, but the one that I, you know, impressed itself on me was we all agreed that, you know, of all the issues we're addressing, they're all terribly important, but none of them will be resolved if we don't deal with climate change, and we need to devote our energies to climate change as our #1 issue. So that was passed unanimously at that unconvention, and the Seattle Grannies took that very seriously and came back and started initially sort of lobbying everybody we could find. And we very quickly figured out that that was going nowhere, that they would meet with us and they would say nice things, but they wouldn't do anything. So after doing that for a year or so, somewhere around 2013, 2014, I met the young folks who organized with Rising Tide in Seattle, and they were starting to talk about organizing a train blockade of the oil trains, because the oil trains to this day run right through downtown Seattle. These things have derailed numerous times in numerous places and exploded and they killed, I believe it was 53 people in Quebec about 4 years ago. We are just lucky that none have derailed in downtown Seattle during a Seahawks or a Mariners game. They run within 50 feet of their stadiums. If they derail there and explode, we are talking tens of thousands of instant death. So aside from the fact that they're cooking the planet and everybody will die from that, the immediate threats of that are just so horrific. I cannot believe that even in a capitalist society that's allowed, but it is. So that was how I got involved in the direct action. They organized a train blockade outside of Anacortes, which I participated in. We stopped an oil train for about 6 hours that day. That was the first train blockade. That was before the Delta 5, if you're familiar with them. They stopped one in Everett, I don't know, a few months later, I think. And so then I got the grannies involved in doing blockades, and we were very involved in Shell No, and we shut down. We locked ourselves to our rocking chairs and shut down the port for a day while the Shell had their Arctic drilling rig there. And we call them our lucky rocking chairs. They've been involved in 5 blockades now, including Break Free and Anacortes again last spring. And it always shocks me that the rocking chairs always come back. The police, don't want to confiscate them. They're like, take these away, so we get them back. So, when I heard about this action, and I was the last person to come into it, it had been being organized for months. And I had heard a tiny little rumor. Emily, who was with me in Minnesota, had said there may be something big going on and it's going to have big legal risks. And, it will be somewhere out of town. Are you interested? And I said, well, I've got the Granny convention in Seattle. This was last summer. And I've got my son's wedding in September. And, unless it's after that, I can't do it. So, as it turned out, when I got back from my son's wedding in September, she called me again and said, you know that thing I talked to you about? And I said, yeah. She said, well, it hasn't happened yet, and we need somebody come and talk to me. So when I heard it, when I heard what was planned, I felt immediately that this is mine to do. This is mine to do. I am retired. My children are in their 30s. They are independent. They don't need, my constant help. And I feel very strongly that it is the duty of old white people to step up and do this stuff because we are at the least risk and we have the least to lose. The cops, as we have seen this past week, and I can hardly say this without breaking down, this is what the cops do everywhere, but they have shot another pregnant black woman in Seattle in front of her children, killed her. And the week before, the King County cops killed a young Asian man who was armed with a pen. They have no regard for the lives of black and brown people. It is institutional racism. I absolutely do not think any reform will fix it. We have to abolish the Institute of Policing. But in any case, if black and brown activists did what we did, the chances of the cops showing up and shooting them are extremely high. Yeah. And for me, I knew that possibility. I knew that I could do years in prison, and I agreed to do that. But, at my age, it's like, why would I care if I have a felony conviction? Why? And of course I don't want to do time in prison. It's not fun. But if it gives my children and all children a chance at a habitable world, it is worth it.